Good evening, welcome to the Trippers. It's me, Chris Brack, and we're going to talk about our Liverpool up for sale. I'm joined by Pete, I'm joined by Jonathan, and we've got Phil back. How are we doing, gents?
Returned.
You all look very confused. You all look very confused. Cool. So let's talk about FSG then. So let me just read the statement that came out this morning, and then we'll get straight into it. So, statement from FSG was there have been a number of recent changes of ownership and rumours of changes in ownership at EPL clubs, and inevitably we were asked regularly about Fenway Sports Group ownership of Liverpool. FSG are frequently receiving expressions of interest from third parties seeking to become shareholders in Liverpool. FSG has said before and that under the right terms and conditions, they will consider new shareholders if they're in the best interest of Liverpool Football Club. FSG remains fully committed to the success of Liverpool both on and off the pitch. So that was the statement. I think David Ornstein came out and with the headline of LFC For Sale, which obviously got everybody excited. So, Jonathan, what was your initial thoughts when this broke probably about 10 o'clock this morning?
Jeez, mine was blown. I was really shocked when it came out. Wasn't expecting it at all. I got a text off one of the lads saying, we won't be sending anyone in January. I was like, what's he on about? I went onto the Twitter and saw the news. So really wasn't expecting it. And you're kind of going to the unknown now. What do we get next? Some people are excited about Middle East money. Some people are afraid of it, Middle East money. And then some people are thinking there's going to be a leverage buyout. Are we going back to the days of Hicks and Gillette? It's really in the unknown now. And I actually don't really know. People would say on Twitter, I'm FSG out. I'm not. I'm kind of FSG spend some money on the team. I've always kind of been in the middle. I've never been FSG in or out. But yeah, really, really shocked by the news. I must say, I wasn't expecting it.
Pete, what was your initial thoughts when you saw the news?
Listen, it's never a surprise. FSG is a fluid business. You know, they bought the club in 2010 for 300 million. It's now, I mean, it's not that it's what they've looked at ever since Chelsea was sold, a pressurized business because of the reasons they had to sell. They probably looked at the money that Chelsea went for and thought to themselves, we're on the clock here, lads. And with a global recession probably around the corner, and with all the doom and gloom, and with the devaluation of the English pound, they're probably thinking to themselves, you know, it's time to flip this asset. It's no big deal. Liverpool is the most efficiently run club on the planet. Everyone else is in the toilet. We're doing well on the pitch. I know that this season's been a bit of a disaster, but listen, we're okay. It's going to be listen, I stand by the fact that we don't want anybody to just walk through the door. But, you know, a lot of things that I was skeptical about, for example, the Spirit of Shankly, I'm going to be proved wrong yet again, because hopefully they're going to have not a say on who buys it, but at least, you know, FSG will have some probably mind, you know, on you know, responsibly selling a portion, if not all, of the club to not just anybody. But listen, it's positive. I refuse to see this as negative. As long as the structure remains the same, it doesn't really matter who's signing the checks, as long as they're not unscrupulous people.
Yeah, I mean, Lazarus put here, all very worrying until you find out who's going to buy them. Phil, what was your initial reaction? I mean, did you even know it broke, Phil? Because I know sometimes you're not quite sure what's going on.
You know,
I was actually stunned. I found out about 4 o'clock this afternoon, so that's where I was. Right, it's been a busy day.
I'm surprised you haven't just found out now when you've come on the show.
No, I found out because it sort of ties in with why I said to Gav, "Here, Gav, I'll go on for the crack, right?" Because I haven't been on in ages, but it does tie in because I think I'm looking at more from the FSG side. To be totally honest with you, right? I think this is probably I think their play as a North American hedge fund that's based around sports. It's very rare that a team like the Redskins here now, the Washington Commanders, comes up for sale. And they're one of the biggest, most well-known franchises in the States. The one thing that's missing from the FSG portfolio, if you look at all their teams and all the pieces that they have, it is an NFL team. And they're not going to get their hands on the Patriots anytime soon. And they'd need to raise a lot more money than they'll sell Liverpool for, probably about another 2 to 2.5 billion more to buy the Commanders as opposed to selling Liverpool. So the easiest way for them to raise that cash and have the ability to go straight in and buy the Commanders is probably to realise the value of Liverpool now and then be ready to buy the Commanders when it comes about onto the market. Now there'll be there's a lot of huge names, including Jeff Bezos, who's meant to put his name in the ring for buying the Commanders, because ultimately, lads, well, as much as we think, football is the be all and end all of global sports, where the money is at the moment is very much in the NFL teams because of the way it's structured. The loss of the European Super League, which is to this day will be the end of football as an entity as we know it, right? And has ruined true sort of competitiveness within the game, is the main reason why FSG are looking to exit. Or, well, see, I'm not bought into the idea that this is an exit. I think this is much an investment play if they can't get the right value on the sale as it is anything else. But I do think they're potentially looking at trying to realise value to allow them to buy the Commanders. Because I'd say with the investment of Redboard into them, with LeBron James now a significant seat on the FSG board, I'd say the real focus is on how can they maximise their American value at this moment in time. Because America's gone very insular anyway.
Who were the Commanders?
Renamed
Commanders.
NFL.
They used to be the Washington Redskins, but because
they changed their name.
They had to rebrand. Yeah, because of the recent change and what it is. A lot of teams have changed it, so like it's a huge. Like they were the Washington football team last year, but like ultimately the guy Dan Snyder is who owns it at the moment is a nasty piece of work, and he is being like the owners were talking about making him sell up and voting him out of his ownership in the NFL because they have the powers to do it. It's completely different than the American sports in comparison to what it is. So when I look at it, I say a lot of things. If you take the Liverpool lens off and put the American lens on it, right? And makes an awful lot of sense as to why they'd be trying to realise capital to allow them to get involved in the bidding war or to purchase an NFL franchise.
Fair enough. Just makes a point. You also have to look at the value of the pound too. Buy could save about 400 million currently. I think he was saying if Liverpool valued at $4.4 billion, something like at least said they could save like 400 million. So it also makes them more appealing to a buyer because this might be the time to, I say, buy a football club. It's still a hell of a lot of money. Paul Joyce has apparently said we can expect strong interest from America. Well, I think there'll be strong interest from multiple sources. I think the question is, I don't think there'll be a problem finding the buyer for a stake in Liverpool. I think people always want to know it's the who and the why, and the question people always want to know is it the whole of the club, or is it a major stake, or is it a partial stake? I mean, I think when you get Morgan Stanley involved, I feel like it's more than just selling 10% of the club, but I would think it's quite a significant amount. It's either the whole club or I would say controlling stake in the club. That's just my reading of it. But Jonathan, do you think the timing of it is significant? It's announced the same day as our rival City announced record commercial sales. Do you think that's just coincidence, or is there no such thing as a coincidence these days in football?
Yeah, I think the time. I suppose look, City's extraordinary financial rise and the record profits again today. Is it coincidental? I don't know. I would say the pressure. I suppose the pressure from the fans to invest in the team is coming on all the time. I suppose the rise of Newcastle United as well. They're looking at now. Can they really compete anymore? And if they can't compete anymore, is it worth keeping the club? So, like, the value is probably maxing out now for FSG. It's not going to get any higher for them. If they can't compete with City, Newcastle, Man United, etc., the value of the club is not going to rise anymore. Now is probably the time to sell. And as Pete was alluding to earlier, we're heading into a global recession. So in a year down the line, will the club be worth 4.4 billion? Probably not. So I'd say there's a number of factors around why they're selling now. I think global recession coming, the rise of Newcastle and Man City can't compete anymore, and as Phil alluded to, also the sale of there's a possibility of buying an American football club. So I'd say a number of factors, and they all tie in to sale. I don't see him selling a percentage. I think they're ready to sell out.
Okay, Pete. So as Kev pointed out, this is the one thing today they will flush out serious buyers and who's talking a good game, throwing the name in the hat, and who's actually doing the do. Or is this been released because actually they probably know who the 2 or 3 main buyers are now, and it's just putting the pressure on to get this moving quicker?
Yeah, at that level, you're never going to show your arse. You're never going to say, listen, we want to sell, and because you want your asset to look very, very attractive. Liverpool, the FSG have been fielding inquiries, maybe for a number of years, and they've always knocked it back. I just feel, and I hang on to the fact that when Chelsea went, it's a bit like when Paul Pogba was sold to Manchester United for nearly 100 million quid. A lot of clubs are looking at their players going, well, if he's worth that and he's not great, what's our guy worth? And all of a sudden it changed the transfer market off completely. I think that surprised even FSG. I don't think anybody really thought that anybody could get north of £2.5 billion for Chelsea, and they got a lot more than that. So I think that's probably a deciding factor, along with the pressures that are coming around the corner. So for me, I just think it's smart business. And I think coupled with if you look at, everybody's talking about bringing in the likes of Jude Bellingham, for example, at 19 years of age for £150 million sterling. I mean, it's a 19-year-old. I know he's had a couple of good seasons, but that's insane. So there's a couple of extra zeros as well if you want to compete with the likes of Newcastle United, with the likes of Manchester City and Real Madrid to be added. And they're probably looking at it going, this is a headache that we can't manage alone. I mean, it's getting similar to, if not well in excess of, American football numbers. So they're probably thinking to themselves, we'll save our extra $2 billion, we'll buy the franchise that we want in the United States, and we'll go into a market that we know that we can control, and that's not probably subject to volatile changes as the Premier League is. And the nail on the coffin probably for the thinking was the European Super League just evaporate. I think they were surprised by how hostile. It's like anything. If you're in a country you don't know, you're in a sport you don't know, they just thought it was another business day. Here's an opportunity. Everyone's going to be happy with it. More money for everyone. And I think when they were hit with the old-fashioned hostility towards it, they were like, okay, we need an out here. And it presented itself when the club's value, by qualification of another club's value being surprisingly high, and they just thought to themselves, yeah, we're out.
Yeah. So Phil, other than possibly the Trippers maybe putting a sneaky bid in, which to be honest, I don't think €50 is really going to sort of buy Liverpool. I'll be honest. Are you sort of seeing it being early days this, or is your gut feeling it's further down the line? I mean, Kieran Thorne's of the opinion he reckons it gets done in the next 2 months.
No,
but some people big business. It's a long-term thing.
Big business doesn't happen that quickly, right? Even if there's interested bidders and there's been people who have come to the table before, it doesn't happen that quickly because there'll be a number of different bidders. Look at the Chelsea situation where Abramovich was forced to sell it, right? They couldn't have a bigger fire sale of a club than the Chelsea situation in terms of what happened, and it still took longer than 60 days. So you're mad to think, unless there's somebody already there with a deal agreed that we don't know about, and this is just the PR piece to wind it along. But no, it's not happening in 60 days. At best, this is a 2023 thing, and it'll be a long process because unlike when Hicks and Gillette were there, which was forced on them by the banks, again, it was another fire sale process, right? And we got to a point where they couldn't renew their debt that was there that they could have rolled over, and that was the only reason that the club got sold the way it did. And again, there was a number of interested parties. Like FSG weren't the only interested party, but they were the ones who came to the table with the cash that Bank of Scotland was happy to take at the time. So, like, this is going to be a longer process. It's not going to be rushed. They want to complete that Anfield. Like, I always saw FSG as coming in as somebody who would maximise the value of the club and then look for an exit if it made sense at the time. And so if you stand back and look at that from with that lens, they've redeveloped Anfield, they've brought us to the top of European football, they've put the best manager in world football in charge, they've built the best squad the club has seen in 40 years, they've had the most amazing results. They were COVID away from having an undefeated season, and even at that, they won the league in terms of what was there. So, at the end of it all, I'd like, why this is what else? What are they going to do from here? Everything to do from here is just repeating what they've just done over the last 10, 15 years, right?
While not being appreciated for it.
Yeah, like, and I see like there's vested interested parties in terms of that's out there and on both sides of it. But I look at the SOS statement that came out tonight. I'm just there going, well, it's great that if there is, but look, ultimately, if FSG decide to sell to let's here we go with We'll just pick something random, right? So if they decide to sell, which is unlikely because of relations that's there at the moment, but to the Chinese Investment Corporation, right, which is a sovereign fund held by the Chinese Investment Party, because they're red and gold, and they'd fit with our color scheme, which would be fantastic, and all the Nike gear is made in China as well. So you have that synergy around things, right? Then they're not going to care. Like I'd be amazed. I would be amazed if there's a outside of a perceived or a perception or a statement that goes out that says we believe that these owners fit the bill to what's there. I'd be amazed if they don't sell to the highest bidder. They might say they don't want to sell to someone who's creating a leveraged buyout situation because they know the history of what went on there before. But outside of that, the sale process is likely to end up with them getting maximizing their true value out of it. That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose this is the closest we've probably come to when we sold to Hicks and Gillette, where again the Moores family decided they had to sell because they realised they couldn't take Liverpool on to compete. So, if FSG got to that point now where they've gone, look, for us to carry on competing with the likes of the Cities and the Chelsea of the world, it's big money. It's big money. The level of money they're probably raising, we don't have. And like Pete's pointed out, if you're talking 150 million just for Jude Bellingham, that's all great. And as me and Jonathan discussed, it sounds like fantasy money because you're going, we need like 4 or 5 players. If you're just looking purely on a playing pitch, I mean, Jonathan, you may have discussed this earlier. A few fans are talking about, does this affect the January window? My opinion is, I think whatever Liverpool were going to do in January will still happen, because now whether that's enough is a different question. Because ultimately, if Liverpool want to sell the club, they still want it to be a Champions League club, because that is the maximum value. If it's not a Champions League club, that will automatically impact the value of the club. So I don't know whether it will or it won't, but I have seen that fear got around social media. I can understand it to a certain extent.
Yeah, I have fears about January now. I don't think they're going to spend in January.
No, listen, Jonathan.
If I'm selling my house in the morning, I'm not going out painting the front of it. Or I'm not putting in a new kitchen.
They're spending. They're bringing in 2 midfielders in January.
Think so?
Phil just fell over. He's that shocked.
Yeah, listen, they'll do it. They might be the 2 midfielders.
Paint the gaff. If you want to maximize your price, you're gonna paint the house. Like that's you can't be having kids writing all over the walls when you want to sell your house.
Yeah, exactly.
You sort it on the page. You have it. You cover up you do a bit of surface paint and you get it all nice and glowing and shiny and clean.
But maybe, right? but is a surface painting bringing in a
surface painting is a Quebec?
A Quebec, yeah. We'll give you the midfield stopgap.
Yeah. No, that's come here. Hang on a second. That's duct tape when you have a leak in the ceiling. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's only stopping the immediacy. It's not fixing the problem. It's just stopping the water. It just means that you don't fill up your pots as much. Come on, think about it, right? You got to think about this. If they really wanted to sell the club, and they want to maximize the value, they aren't going to go spendthrift on it, because it's so important for them then to have the club in the Champions League. Think about this, lads. Like, if you want to sell this club at its maximum value, you don't sell it when they're outside the Champions League and not with a chance of winning something. You know what I mean? Like, this is, you have to think of this logically. The way you maximize the value is have them simply sitting where they look at the moment to the fourth, the 4 commercially biggest team in that Forbes list that was there behind Barcelona, Man United, was it Real Madrid, in terms of the most recent list that came out, whatever it was there. So there's no way that they were going to say, well, do you know what? We'll just let all the players, we don't worry about getting in the Champions League. We're selling this. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference. Now, you maximize it by showing what the club is, what the reach of the club is, and this global thing in terms of what it is. And that's how it looks like. So, yeah, I'm going with if they're going to spend money, I think the bigger question mark has always remained around, again, the spending money comes down to, do they truly believe in the targets that they have and when they can achieve those targets? And that's what it looks like to me. And do they believe in Julian Ward? I think there's a bigger question mark. If you want to get deep into this, it's the bigger question mark is, do they have the faith in Julian Ward going into another window? Having spent the money on Darwin Núñez, having agreed the loan deal for Melo to soak up what's there, having brought in Luis Diaz, here's the question. This is about now faith in the person that you put in place to replace someone who was a generational sports director. As much as the manager.
Yeah, look, you've a lot. We haven't spent much in the last few windows. I'd be amazed if we're going to suddenly start spending big on the eve of a sale.
Jonathan,
You'd
how
be
many
amazed.
times have you been amazed? I mean, listen, I was in Malaga when Jurgen Klopp announced, okay, I'm staying for another 4 years. I don't know where I was, somewhere in Barcelona, when Mohammed Salah signed his contract. Nobody seen either of those things coming. When Virgil van Dijk signed, and we thought we had blown it because of all this stuff with Southampton. Liverpool do things when they need to do them. And you listen, the team watching the sports match, yes, you know you're going to go into a
We
lead.
don't do things when we need to do them.
The team is exhausted. It needs legs. Everybody can see. You don't need to know that much about football, about the game, to understand that the team needs legs. There's 2 midfielders coming in at least in January. No doubt.
I'd highly dispute the fact that we do things when we need to do them. We clearly don't, because
We got beaten by Spurs 4-1 at Wembley. I'll never forget it. And Dejan Lovren was dragged off after 29 minutes. And I remember everybody, I think, Phil, you and I were texting, or somebody was, listen, if ever we needed to replace 5 of these guys, it needs to be now. And they went on, and he just went out and did it. The club does. Listen,
that was on foot of the Coutinho.
I agree with you, John, that I would love them to go and buy players or bring players through when they don't need to, when it's all that's a great bonus for the future. But when it needs to be done, I have to say, with the club, they just go and do it. And they will.
We were top of the league. We were top of the league at Christmas 2020, and we had no centre backs. And on the 31st of January,
do not think, John, that was a freak. I mean, we had 19 players injured, go down with injury that season. I mean, it was.
I still think if you're top of the league on Christmas Day and you have no centre backs, you go out and buy 2 of them. You give yourself a chance. Like we won 1 league in 30 years. We're top of the league at the halfway stage, and then we get 2 cabinets.
Yeah, and that's fair. But Jonathan, the downside of being Liverpool when you're champions, all of a sudden you go to the market and you say we need, and you know a player that you're looking at all of a sudden with a market value of 8 million would say all of a sudden, oh, you need.
I'd argue that January was the best time to go to the market, because we were in the middle of COVID. Most clubs were financially in trouble. So I'd say we could have lowballed a lot of clubs that January.
Liverpool can't lowball anybody. Listen, it's the price of success. Like Newcastle are finding out now. Newcastle go in for a player. The reason why they haven't splashed cash everywhere is because everybody knows they have it. There's two halfpenny places to be in now in football. 1, successful, which is where Liverpool have been, and 2, rich. You go to the market in those 2 situations, and all of a sudden the price triples. That's what happens. That's why Edwards was so important for us, because even though people saw us coming, he was still able to do those deals that you thought to yourself, how is he fucking doing this? How is he doing it? Everybody can see us coming, and he can still negotiate and get this done. That's the skepticism I think Phil is sharing about Ward. He doesn't seem to be able to get that done. People are pulling his pants down. Nunes is a very good player, will be a very good player. But 89 million quid, I'm not so sure. You know, would somebody else have gotten that over the line for 40 million plus bonus plus add-ons? No. Maybe. And that's the skepticism. And this is what I'm saying. This is where we are right now. When Liverpool need a player, the price goes from there to there.
But play devil's advocate.
There are no buts.
There are. The price goes there up there for City, for United, for Chelsea. They all know it. And for as well run as Liverpool have been, they have been very well run. You didn't take a genius to go, we were all saying in the summer, look, the lads we've got in midfield, they're good players, but they're getting old and the legs are going a little bit. I think they needed a bit of help. Now, if Schumann was who they wanted, and I don't believe that if Schumann, we couldn't find anybody who could have done another job for us. Maybe not a starter, but somebody who could have come in and done stopgaps. That's not planning for the future. And to be fair, to as good as Edwards was, part of the reason we were so successful is we sold really well. We stopped selling well 3 years ago because we've still got lads there who we should have got rid of, and we know we should have got rid of.
Yeah, the difference between us and them is, and all them, what they do better than us is they go out to the Wolfsburgs, the Red Bull Leipzig early, and they nick their kids. They nick their kids. They take them at 18, 19. The Alvarez's, they go out and they buy them. We look at them and we get their name in the paper. We never touch them. City will go and buy 5 of them, and you'll go, What are they buying them for? They don't need them. Not going to be near the team. And they'll send them out to Vitesse Arnhem. They'll send them out to different clubs. And then when they need them 2 and 3 years later, they bring them back en masse, and it's sink or swim. We don't seem to do that. And I think that's the difference between us and the others.
See, the bit that it falls, Chris, this argument always falls down for me on one simple thing. How much money has Klopp spent since he came in?
Absolutely no idea. Loads.
400 million, maybe.
625 million pounds.
And why is he recruit though?
Forget that. We've spent 625 million pounds on players since Jurgen Klopp took over at Liverpool Football Club. Lads, there's been lots of money spent. Lots and lots and lots of money spent. And we raised money through sales. Fantastic. But we've spent a shit ton of money. We spent nearly £750 million on players since Klopp came in. That's not a lack of investment. That's not. You're averaging just under 100 million a year.
Yeah, but the argument we're making is it's lack of planning for certain things, and some things you can.
Chris, that's bollocks. Chris, it's bollocks.
It's not.
You're talking absolute. You're talking absolute horseshit. Hang on, P. We're talking about this, right? We've gone since Klopp's come in and spent a shit ton of money since he came in, right? Purely because we had a nothing squad. Go back and look at the squad that we had when he takes over. Look at all the players that were signed. I'm talking about signed that comes in. Look at what we've done with it. The issue that we've had is phase 2. It's phase 2 planning. It's the reinvention of a squad. And Klopp's biggest failure at Dortmund was revigorating that squad early enough. And when he did, the players they brought in weren't the right type of players, right? So if you want to talk about what's going on, it's not just about spending money. It's about spending the right money. It's about signing the right players.
That's what I've just said. But that's what I've just said.
Again,
we haven't planned for this next evolution quick enough.
That's a different. That has to be separated from FSG having given them money to spend. The money's been there. They've spent the money. But I'm just saying, in general, I'm looking at the comments that are coming in. We've spent a massive amount of money. We've raised a massive amount of money. And if we get a new set of owners that comes in, there's no guarantee there's going to be more money to spend. And what's the reason for that? Because if they let the club run the way the club is run, if they let the club run itself in the same way the FSG has let the club run itself, it's going to be the same amount of money that's going to be available to spend. So there's no guarantee. You get new owners in, there's no guarantee there's going to be more money to spend. The only way you get a lot more money to spend, the only way you compete with the PSGs and the Manchester Cities, it's nothing to do with owners. You have to get a nation state who wants to throw an unlimited amount of money at it to make their pet project for vanity. That's purely what it is. Like you mentioned the Manchester City thing. I when it was sort of looking up what was said and looking at what was there, right? They're just inventing pretendy deals now at this stage. They're just inventing pretendy deals, right? And they're claiming it as commercial revenues and wonder stuff and everything like that. Yeah. It's nothing to do with great owners. It's purely about sports washing. So and Liverpool fans need to make this decision themselves, right? If they want to have the morals and they want to have something that fits with the city's legacy and with where they believe the club is, etc., around it, then you don't want new owners. You want FSG because they're running the team and they're running the club, listening to the supporters, listening to the fan base, getting supporters involved, putting them into the things of the club, having Kenny on the board, right? All the things that fans want, they listen and they've responded to, right? If they want to be at the top table, competing with the Manchester Cities, the PSGs, the Newcastles when they come through, all those teams, then they need somebody who is going to sports wash this to be Jesus, right? And they have to accept that they have to be like the Newcastle lads, ignore everything else that goes on in the background with the owners. You may as well, and I said this in jest last Christmas, we may as well get the mafia to take us over, right? And they can just launder the money through the club and you can have an unlimited amount of money going through whatever it is, and some form of the mafia, because that's essentially what you wanted to do, just unlimited amount of money is put there. You know what I mean? So that for me,
I'd rather go and watch Celtic or Pats or Shamrock Rovers than see Liverpool with money that off the back of slavery, off the back of genocide, off the back of murder, off the back of infringement of female and LGBT rights, I'd rather wash my hands and just not have anything to do with the club until they're gone.
We had this.
I'll be honest with you. I don't
conversation
on the success. A bit of silverware is not that fucking important. It just isn't. End of.
If we were taken over by an oil state,
and sorry, Jonathan, and people don't give me these fucking conspiracy theories that people are coming up with the comments. Unless you give me a solid document where every bank in the world has some sort of connotation in its subsidiary in some country where they have done a deal. So I'm talking about direct ownership. Sorry, Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, we had this conversation on the pod last week about FSG. If we are taken over by an oil state or whatever, how many people would walk away? It's easy to say I'm gone. I'm following Liverpool since 1987, when the great patches in my life. It's not so simple as just say I'm walking away.
It is.
Some people will walk away.
And it's not Liverpool anymore.
Pete, hang on. Pete, stop jumping.
Let him speak.
Just hang on.
See, to me, it's still Liverpool. The owners are there in the background, but the club is there. For me, I don't know if I'd be able to walk away from it. I'm not here begging for oil money. I'm not saying, yes, I want Qatari, Bahraini money, whatever else is out there. But could you, Pete, you said you'd walk away. Would you walk away, Chris? Would you walk away, Phil? I don't know if I'd walk away from the football club if we were taken over by an oil state.
Gladly. I go and watch Pats. I love St. Pat's. I go and watch Celtic. I go and watch. There will be a club that will rise from the ashes of Liverpool, a local club, Liverpool AFC, like they did at Wimbledon. Something like that will happen. Go and watch them, because I tell you, we've all been jumping up and down, having Twitter arguments with Manchester City supporters, talking about beheadings in Saudi Arabia. You cannot fucking go there. And I use language I don't like to use. I'm telling you, can't just say, we need to compete. Fuck competing when people are dying. And there's people in the comments say, I'll grow. I will grow. I'm the grown up here. People, if somebody comes in with millions of people's blood on their hands, I will walk away. And I hope that loads will walk away with me and watch St. Pat's and watch AFC Wimbledon, watch anybody but this club if they're being controlled by murderers and by people who enslave and who don't care about LGBT rights, don't care about women, who behead people, kids, chop kids' hands off it. No. See this World Cup and get tired as well. I will try my utmost. I won't be watching it. Fuck it. I won't be watching it because people are dying. No, it's not worth it. It's football. It's football. It's not worth it. No, you're just giving these people what they want. You're giving them the opportunity to say, I'm a nice guy, even though I've killed a load of people. I'm a nice guy. Here's 100 million to buy your favorite player. No, these people are murderers and they need to be held accountable. They should be in The Hague. That's where they should be. Not sitting at Old Trafford or Anfield, warming their hands and having a nice cup of tea.
You obviously have Pete, you have a strong moral compass.
No, everybody has. Everybody has. But some people say, I want to run at the Champions League. At what cost? See if that's my.
Everyone's not going to think that way, though. I can guarantee you, everyone's not going to think that way.
Well, I don't want to know people that don't. That's the truth. I don't. No, I have three kids under the age. 16.
Pete, can I just ask? So, I'm going to ask. Are you going to watch the World Cup?
No, Phil. Do you know what? I'm doubly determined now. First of all, Ireland aren't there, so I don't give two fucks about the World Cup. And it's in a place where gay people are thrown off buildings, are stoned to death, where women don't have the rights to have an education, where people are killed and hidden. No. Do you know what? No. As God is my witness, no. I will play FIFA. I will play Championship Manager 98. There's a new version online. I will not watch a World Cup that of people being butchered because of who they are. No.
All right, let Phil speak. Go on. Your time, Phil.
No, see, again, look, I've had it. I haven't been on the show because I've lost interest in football, and it's not just
and Miranda and Cheese. Don't tell me to fuck off. You fuck off the forum. I don't care about whataboutism. I don't care. There's nobody in Nepal looking to buy Liverpool. So people want to tell me to fuck off in this forum and this can go fuck themselves. People are dying. These people, you are the ones that need to grow up. No, these people block them. Somebody tell them.
P.
It's better I say no. Better I say no.
No, I know. I can feel your passion.
These
I can
people
feel
are
the
idiots
anger.
coming in. Oh, they just want. I don't care about the Champions League. I've seen Liverpool win great things under
I
nice
get
people.
that. I get that. But again, going back to, I know, Chris. Problem I have is I just don't see competitiveness left in football anymore. Right? There's. And this, I was struggling with this towards the back end of last season. And there's been loads of times I said I'm done with this, but I genuinely had an issue. Like I left, I was numb going to watch the Champions League final. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This wasn't about the result. I was numb. I was just there going, it's great that we got there. It could be a long, long time till we see that again. And I knew that if everything doesn't go smoothly for us as a club, that the likelihood of us mounting a challenge of over 90 points is slim, right? Because you can see what happens when we had a slip up two seasons ago where it wasn't going perfect. That's what it ends up like, right? So again, for me, that's where I'm struggling. So I've started looking at this cold in terms of what it was. I like I like the owners that we have. I think they've serviced the club in a very honourable and respectful manner, and they've paid attention. They've listened to the fans, even when they were getting messages that they didn't like. I don't think that the ownership structure that allows us to compete at the level that you're going to need to do to maintain this without a structural change in football as a whole. And they weren't allowed to be part of that structural change, right? And there's this holding up this bastion, the idea that UEFA is protecting football, and it wasn't. They're protecting their own interests, and they're protecting in particular the control of Qatar over UEFA at the moment. Because let's not forget that the guy who is over Qatar, who's also over PSG, is now the head of UEFA. So and is in control of the UEFA FFP committee, and that's why the whole FFP changes and it allows them to do what they want. So when we talk about competition, it's perceived competition as opposed to real competition. Okay, and in my mind, I had less of an issue of having maybe 30 teams at the top end of the football strata, where there was real competition between these teams, as opposed to 20 teams and 4 teams who are just going to blow everyone away. So that's where I am. As far as new owners come in, I don't know how you make that equation adds up. And I think sadly, if you want the club to be at the level of a Man City or a PSG or what potentially Newcastle have with there, then you've got to accept that the likely owner is not going to be somebody that the fans will necessarily align values with, or will have aligned values with what the club has. So, even if take for example, if you take probably the wealthiest man after Elon Musk out there with his personal wealth, and that's Jeff Bezos, right? If he comes in, thinking about the issues that have existed in terms of workers' rights behind Amazon and stuff like this, do you know what I mean? That again goes against the ethos and the philosophy.
But he's not, in fairness, he's not killing anyone. I still don't want him as an owner.
But Pete, I'm sorry, but you can't. If this is what we're talking about, right? You're not going to find. It'd be very rare to find a billionaire or multi-billionaire without some type of shady stuff in their background.
If you're trying to shoehorn a killer regime in to say that, well, I'll equate them now with Jeff Bezos, who doesn't want a union. I'm sorry, that's not going to fly. Let me tell you as well in the comments, there's people saying, "Oh, we have American owners and Americans are killers." But for the idiots that are making comments like that, the owners, people who own Manchester City and who own Newcastle United, like Mohammed bin, are directly responsible for the atrocities. Our owners are American. They're not related to George Bush. They're not warlords. They just happen to be fucking American. This makes you a fucking idiot. Now, that's the difference. Sorry, Phil, but nobody's going to shoehorn, a killer in as an owner off the back of Jeff Bezos not liking unions. It is not the same thing.
But again, as I said to you, the likely owners, there's not one out there that's going to be will be able to wear all the shoes and all the hats and all the gloves when it comes to what it is. There's going to be something that fans don't like or are concerned about. And the likelihood is if we get the owners that everyone thinks are morally right and morally, they're not going to be the ones that will have the funding behind them to allow them to challenge the bigger ones. And to get the guys in to have the funding to challenge it, that's where you get it. And as I said, I don't know what the answer is. I just genuinely don't know what the answer is. And just on your point, Pete, like again, I sort of disassociate the idea that it's the regimes in these countries as opposed to the countries themselves. It's the moral corruption of sport as a whole exists not just at the football level, but across multiple sports. So, you can't sit there in terms of what it is. And if the Chinese came in tomorrow to take over Liverpool, let's be honest about this, right? There's massive issues there, man. It's massive issues. And what's left after that? Like, is it going to be an Indian owner? Because there's a lot of money in India in terms of and billionaires that are sitting there. But I'm sure there'll be something that will come out of it.
As long as it's not a Chinese owner who is directly responsible for making the decisions at government level that suppress people, I won't have a problem. But if it's an owner who is direct, listen, because if you discriminate against a Chinese or an Indian based on the fact that they're Chinese or Indian, that's just racism. If you have to make your decision, Phil, based on the fact, are they directly, like Mohammed bin Salman, like the guys that own Manchester, are they directly connected to the regime that is making these oppressive decisions? That should be your basis. Anything else will be racism. And that's what, let me give it to you straight. For example, if a Qatari or a Saudi Arabia person comes in and they're not directly related to any decision-making process, which I would have to be proved stringently, then I would have to sit down and think. However, if they are related to bin Salman, or if they are related to a Chinese, if they are part of the decision-making process that suppresses people, well, then I would say no. That should be the basis of your decision, Phil.
Yeah, I think the original point that I was trying to make was, would people walk away? Now, I look at the chat here and I don't see too many people twerking for the Arab money or Middle East money. But the question is, would people walk away? And Pete, you've said you would walk away, and that's fair enough. I have said, while I'm not here looking for that type of money, I don't know if I could walk away. Now, you obviously have better morals than I have.
I didn't say that. I can only tell you how I feel. You might be a much better person than I am.
Liverpool's just been a huge part of my life since I'm a child. I don't know if I could walk away. And a lot of people might feel the same. They may not agree with these type of owners.
And that's why, Jonathan, sports washing, as Phil will tell you, works.
That's why it works.
That's why they're doing it.
Yeah,
that's why it works.
But there's different ways I suppose there are different ways of dealing with it. If it was me, could I walk away from Liverpool? I think I'd find that tough. I generally would. But would I be going into buying stuff for the club shop? Would I be going to Anfield to watch the games? If it was an owner that I wasn't comfortable with? Probably not. Because it would probably taint it for me a little bit. But I think everyone has to sort of, I think you find everyone has their own boundaries. Everyone's different boundaries, and you agree what's acceptable for you. Look, people chat, some agree with Pete, some don't agree with Pete. As long as you're keeping it respectful, that's fine. And
they always do in the chats. They always do.
There's a couple I would say who are getting borderline, and they will get moved on by the mods. Sean Casey, he gives a super chat ages ago, and stupid me forgot to put it up. So he said Liverpool have apparently received their first offer for the club according to the Financial Times. It's a Norwegian. I think that's the Norwegian foreign state. So. Listen, I've absolutely no idea what that entails. If it's how real or unreal the offer is, or if it's just someone trying to get the name associated with it, But again, look, it's like anything. I think if and when we get to a point where there's a new owner in, I think plenty will do the digging around it to see who's owning the club. Will it influence the decision? No. I very much doubt it, because if the billionaire wants to do what a billionaire wants to do, it's quite hard to stop him. But we'll have to see where we are from there. So before we finish off, what's your gut feeling then, Phil, for where this goes? Do you think is it like you think in 2023, or do you think it's quite a long process? Do you think the whole club gets sold anyway, or do you think it's a partial deal?
I'd be surprised if it's a partial deal. Okay.
I mean, like a controlling stake. So maybe FSG still have a stake in it.
I think I'd be surprised if it's a partial deal. I'd say if something, there's two things. I know they mentioned that they might be testing the water to see what the valuation is, but the more owners they bring in, the less control they have when it comes to actually selling the whole thing off. So why would they give up that level of control? Even with the Red Board investment, that comes in at the top level into the FSG as opposed into one of the individual the clubs that they own, like say the Red Sox or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So they went in at the top level, so it keeps it simplified in terms of what's there. So if they do have a mind to say, well, if we get the right offer, we'll move it on. I don't think they'll go for an investment. Investment to them will be if they want to do something else with the club, like in terms of really take it on. And then what can you do? What type of investment does that look like? Well, you give 20% of the club away. How much is it going to pay? Where does that money go to? The likelihood is that first of all, whatever interest-free, non-repayable loans FSG charged to the club for the building of the new stand will be repaid first over, and then they're probably looking at naming rights for the rest of the stand. In terms of look, to me, the one that would have made sense only the chap who was mad for it passed away there only a couple of weeks back, and that's the Red Bull one. To me, that was the most logical piece that would end up being the apex of their pyramid, of their sporting pyramids. Yeah. And if you look at all the dealings and stuff, and there's the only talk that's in it is because Andy went off and photoshopped something, right, and started giving that one that was there, right. But like that would make sense from a logical perspective, that Liverpool becomes the top end of the Red Bull tree, and then you have all the feeder clubs and everything built in and everything that was going on, and there was enough money to do it if there was a will to do it. But there again, that will bring a different type of structure into play, because their whole thing is about finding talent at the feeder clubs and then feed it right the way through the ladder. And I don't know how that wouldn't pan out well with the lads who want to spend 100 million on every player. You know what I mean? So you can't get it to marry up in terms of what's there. So ultimately, Chris, I think if they get the right price, they walk away. If they don't, then I think we'll probably just see them selling naming rights on Anfield, and that will be another interesting debate show as to why should we sell naming rights to Anfield. Yeah, but you have to do something. You can't, you can't just stand still. And at the moment, my issue is I firmly believe we've spent a lot of money in the last two windows, and there's huge question marks over how we spent that money. If you look at a Klopp side, it's built on engine, it's built on legs, and it's built on a dynamic midfield. And with letting Genie go and focusing on rotating the top end and not rotating that middle part, I think that was, and I had that question as we went through the various different windows that was there. The reliance that's put on Keita, who arguably Keita stands as the example as to why the club can't afford to get a valuable transfer wrong. He's the one major flop we've had, right, in terms of Edwards deal under the Klopp regime, and you could see last year they were sort of building the idea around that this fellow is now ready to step up and become that engine, and he's just gone missing. You know what I mean? Like, he's gone missing this season. So I think it'll be a sale. I think it happens probably towards the back end of the season, maybe into the start of next season that's there, and then everything kicks off. I think, but it'll be played out. And the one thing I would be surprised if a lot of it gets played out in the papers, but the more people that are involved, the more chances leaks. But given that the Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanleys are running it, you won't hear anything about it until they've actually shortlisted, say, 5 to 8 people, groups or interested parties that want to buy the club. So that's where I think today is really just one that sets up the fans to say we are considering a sale, without saying we're going to sell the club. All right,
cool. Pete, what's your thoughts?
Nobody is investing north of €1 billion. Forget about 2, 3, 4 billion euros without complete control and ownership. So this isn't about investment. As much as I was saying to Sean today, listen, they're inviting investment, but the more you think of it, investment is what LeBron did, for his 2%. That's like, listen, let's take care of one of our own, blah, blah, blah. This is, listen, we're going to flip this. This is the optimum time. We're at the peak of the mountain financially, and there's a global recession coming, and we cannot, realistically compete with what the club deserves. And I think there's a part of it that they're recognizing the fact that new zeros are coming into play here in order to just keep up with Manchester City and to keep up with the emergence of Newcastle. So I think it's progress. It's one of those things that they're recognizing as a business, as a brand. They're protecting the brand by looking to see if anyone's on the market that can take it forward. And fair play. They probably retain a small interest in the club, which is the want of of an organization like FSG, and fair play to them, because they really, you don't understand how well you do, Brecken, because you live there. You understand how close Liverpool was to going to the wall. You know, they were like 6 hours from going into administration. We were, you know, talking about relegation, talking about being docked points. We were in a really bad place. These guys absolutely saved us. So now they're doing the right thing by us, and they're going to leave us in a competitive state. My only fear is, besides the ones I've already talked about, the moral ones, is structurally that everything should remain the same. Just probably with the right people, you know, obviously that the investment continues. And that'll be my feeling on it.
Yeah, John, I'll give you a fan where Emmett's just said Anfield Rap likened it to the Moors selling up because he knew he couldn't compete with the new money that was in the Premier League. Is this sort of like a similar situation, but obviously bigger values?
I hope we sell better this time.
Well, yeah, did mean that the end bit, but you know, the process of, you know, why he was trying, why they were trying, why Moors was trying to move the club on, which made sense. It just, the execution wasn't great. But yeah, so what's your sort of gut feeling how this goes then?
Yeah, I think that the news today doesn't get leaked unless there's concrete interest in the club. I would imagine FSG have spoken to a number of parties already. So it could be further down the line, we think. I think a sale probably happens. I don't know how long these type of things take with due diligence, and the league have to fit proper owners, whatever that entails in the Premier League.
I don't think you have to worry about that, I would say.
No, I'd say we're okay there, unless we're Russian, we'd be okay. No, yeah, I think that news wasn't leaked for no reason. I think it's it could have legs, and it could be further down the line we even imagine. So I'd be thinking there might be a sale before the end of the year, maybe. Hopefully in time for January. I don't want things to rumble on through January and then.
I mean, this is not selling. This is not selling the second-hand car, Jonathan. To be honest with you, you know, I mean, there's things in this house that I could probably sell that quick. But not going to sell a football club in 2022.
Well,
that's not a house. That's a caravan.
If
you're trying to call it a house.
Further down the line, I think it's down the line. I think there's plenty of legs in this sale already. Why release the story if it wasn't? Unless they're trying to,
good point.
Yeah, unless they're trying to fish out people and see if they're what genuine interest is there. But as I said, look, I'd be no business expert, so I don't know how long these things could take. I just don't want it to rumble through January, because as we spoke earlier, I'd have fears about what we might do in January. I don't want that to get in the way of what transfers are required. Because
I wouldn't worry about it, John.
If 2 players in January, the season's going to get away from us.
Phil said it earlier on. You know, they're going to, in order to maintain the value of the club, the saleable value of the club, the investment needs to continue in the playing talent. We need to be in a good position if and when the club is sold or part of it is sold, whatever happens. So, you know, don't worry about that. I mean, it's not like stop everything. It's not like, you know, let's just not do anything until it's sold. No, they will. If anything, it will make them want to be extra prudent in the market and make us a real proposition. You know, by the time May, June comes along, that we're in that Champions League one way or the other.
Hopefully, yeah.
I mean, my 2 pence is I don't think anything changes until the summer. My gut feeling is I don't think you hear anything more concrete until the summer now. I think this is just getting the early indicators out of where we are. I would probably say there's probably 2 or 3 parties they've already know. And I think this is just now to put the pressure on to say, right, let's get this going. Which one of you is serious? I think because you tend to find there's a lot of people who are very serious about these things until they have to show the money. And you know, Chelsea found that out when they tried to force a sale through. There's quite a few who said they were interested until it said, put the money up. And then they all disappeared very quickly until, to be fair, Tom Bowley was the only one who actually then went, well, I'll put the money up. So, you know, look, we'll see. Look, let's face it, this is going to be an ever-evolving story, so I'm sure we'll be doing other shows and there's more discussions as and when something more concrete comes out. I do find amazing journalists who knew nothing about this now all know the value of the club, the inside scoop in 3 hours. It's amazing how a journalist knows nothing can find all the information out in 3 hours. So, you know, that's me being cynical. One last thing before we go, though. Links in the description below. We've mentioned it on shows before. Please don't forget our help for Linda. who's battling endometriosis, and she needs to raise 5k for her to have an operation to help make her life easier. And for people who know people who've had endometriosis, it is a horrible illness. It's for women, it's really painful. And unfortunately for Linda, she's got it in the lining of nearly all of the major organs. So for the poor girl, I mean, she's only 17, so you can imagine what this sort of thing is doing to her mental health as well as her physical health. So, as we say, we've done this sort of stuff before. This is more important than 4 lads talking about FSG selling the club. If you can donate. If you can't, like it, share it, because as Gav says, you never know who reads it and that touches them, and that's the person that does enough. And as Kev always says, it's the 5s and 10s that'll get this done. So if you take nothing else away from the show, take that away. That'll be the big thing from the show. But listen, good show, good chat. It's always good to have a good debate with us, really. So, Pete, thanks for coming on. Phil, we might see you in another 6 months.
Well, it's been a really busy day in real matters. Frank Wright got sacked by the Colts. I've spent a lot of time listening to how amazing Justin Fields is emerging as a quarterback, which he is. And then I was looking into Girona as a cycling destination and buying parts for my bike. So yeah, it's been really, really busy.
Well, you're somewhere to stay, that. So get over here. Girona is.
I know. Yeah, I was actually planning out it's a 120k loop that they have that goes up and around one of the towns at the back end. It's Benales or something like that. That's behind Girona. Yeah. And then back down to the coast and around, because there's some amazing climbs that are there as well. So yeah, so that's what I've been doing. So you can all talk about the players and the lads and all that type of stuff. And I'll be off watching.
You've got the mountains on one side, you've got the road in the middle, and you've got the sea on the other. Literally, it's everything that you need. So
yeah, but the aim is to stay on the road, mate, because if you end up in the mountains, you're going to end up in the sea, and it's not going to be pretty.
Cool. And Jonathan, thanks for coming on. You're becoming a regular now. We'll have to keep you on every week now.
Good man, John.
I need to get one of these fancy microphones that Phil has.
No. That's not a microphone.
That was keeping the hero.
That's my battery pack.
Cool. So rest of the week, there'll probably be a preview show tomorrow because Liverpool play again on Wednesday against Derby. We'll probably Viewers' Voice again on Thursday. I think I'm on Friday with the lads previewing the last Premier League games before the World Cup. And then there'll be Full-Time Reds, which will probably be me, Matt and Kev again talking about hopefully not another fucking new manager bounce. It's in Liverpool, but we'll see where it is. But listen, thanks for watching. Like and share on your way out. Subscribe if you want to, and we'll see you guys very soon.
Be good, boys.